I'm not in the best of mindsets here. I'm not even doing like.
Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to me and us at this time without an attorney present? Okay, right, yes, right there.
Proponents of Holtzclaw's innocence will often point to his willingness to waive his right to an attorney as supporting evidence. It's a very weak argument. Guilty people subject themselves to police interrogations without a lawyer present frequently, and they do so precisely because they believe it will project the image of innocence. As a side note, this is a terrible idea under any circumstance. Even if a person is categorically not guilty of the crime they're being accused of, there is no significant downside to having all the exculpatory evidence conveyed to the state through an attorney. You will not be awarded any extra credit for opting to convey said evidence yourself, and because having legal representation is a right, the state is forbidden to present your decision to demand it as an indicator of guilt in court. They can, however, as the Miranda warning states explicitly, use anything you choose to say against you.
Okay, look, just like we talked in the car. You haven't heard any rumors?
I haven't heard any rumors.
So
when I walked in the station, I see Captain leaned over, not unusual. Captain Clifton, hey, but then I've seen you in the cab, I've never seen you, and so.
Well, nobody.
But I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
So just like anything.
You had said, and we told you that there was a traffic stop.
Right.
That somebody made some allegations against an officer.
Right.
They don't know the officer's name, none of that. And you said that you made a traffic stop after work,
Yeah.
but you didn't call it in.
I didn't call it.
Where was that?
It was about Northeast 50th and Lincoln, just to the west.
Okay. Tell me about that stop.
I was going westbound on Northeast 50th, probably a block just east of Lincoln. I see a red Grand Prix or Grand Am in my right lane, in the outside lane. I'm in the inside lane. The car swerves, and so at the time I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a drunk person, or maybe got excited because they saw a cop. So I kind of fall behind it, kind of drifting just a little bit, not crossing lane lines, nothing crazy. So I lighted up because at first the traffic violation I saw at first when it swerved. That was just west of Northeast 50th in Lincoln. And then made contact. It was a black female. Asked for license and insurance. Stated that she didn't have insurance, gave me an ID. At the time, I'm like, do you have a valid insurance or a valid license? She said no. I told her, I just got off work. I mean, what's the deal? You know, why are you swerving? And she says, I'm just trying to go home to Ann Arbor-ish on the northwest side to see your daughter or something like that. So I asked, is there anything on board as far as the vehicle? Is it okay if I search your vehicle and whatnot? She said, the only thing that's inside there is a Kool-Aid cup. I'm like, is there anything inside of that Kool-Aid? Is there liquor or anything inside that?
Before you fucking cry about putting trigger warnings in the title, check the title, okay? You got a week off because you don't know how to refresh your own fucking dumbass Twitch stream.
Kool-Aid. She's no. I'm like, okay, is there anything else inside there? She says there's pills. I'm like, is that the only thing? And then, so I said, can I have permission to search your car? She says yes. I go inside the car, I see a lot of pills. But
what kind of pills?
I didn't really.
Like scattered pills or in a bottle?
She said
pills?
It's hydrocodone pills, but I just quickly looked at it, and I think I saw her name on the prescription bottle, so I didn't.
Oh, so it was a bottle.
Right.
Okay.
There were several bottles in her purse. And then, so at that time, I just returned back to her. It's like, okay, I saw your pills. I didn't see any alcohol. I sniffed the drink, didn't smell any alcohol in the Kool-Aid. I'm like, okay, I'm just off work. I'm tired. Get your
Look how this motherfucker's describing it, dude. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. If he wasn't a cop, and if this wasn't such a prevalent thing that happens in policing, I would be inclined to believe him, specifically because of how confident he is and the way that he's describing the situation. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like talking about it like someone who feels at least like, because this is an important event Okay? It's an important event. Even if it's not a traumatic event for him, like, he shouldn't be able to recall the details of this event in the way that he currently is talking about it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of fucking nuts that he's just like, that's why I said if he wasn't a cop, I'd be inclined to like think of this as a suspicious, think of this as not like 100%. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I specified it with if he wasn't a cop. The way that he's describing the situation is like kind of wild. Because like the careless way in which he's recollecting the events is almost like methodical, and it makes it seem like emotion is completely taken out of the situation, and you wouldn't do that. Like, you would have to be a really good actor to be able to recall events like that if they weren't, if they were, you know, fucking traumatizing or like a significant event like this. But of course, once again, because he's a cop, like, I know for a fact that he can recall and retell these events in an almost methodical and precise fashion, despite the actions that happened there. Cops have an actual term for this. It's called test-lying, for the record. Those of you who don't know. So,
license taken care of. Just mine.
So she didn't have a driver's license?
She didn't have a driver's license, and I was just like, go to DPS, Department of Public Safety on King, get that taken care of, and they cut her loose after that.
Okay. Then where'd you go?
I went straight home.
Okay. Do you remember her name? It was on the prescription.
I don't.
what do you mean, fix your mic?
Do you make traffic stops normally after work?
I don't, but in that case, I saw her swerve and whatnot, so
I mean, me, I don't.
felt.
After I get off work?
I know. I mean,
I know,
people,
last thing I want
cops
to
say
do
that is
right.
have a, you know, whatnot to have the vision, whatever. But
Did you say test the lying? Yes, that is like actual fucking cop term for falsifying a testimony in an effort to make your arrest or whatever altercation that you had, oftentimes brutal, seem more legitimate. No, this is not Stunlock, chat. This is important for people to fucking know, dude. What the fuck? Most people don't know this shit. That's why I do this. That's why you're not watching this on your own and watching it here. Like,
I felt like I needed
chill.
to make that traffic stop.
Okay. How was she? Was she respectful? Was she
She
not?
felt like she was nervous and whatnot, and I'm like, why are you nervous? And she was even crying. I'm like, why are you crying? Why are you nervous? Whatnot.
just a fucking juiced up
Was she
cop
drunk? Did you think she was drunk?
stopping you, a black
think
woman, in the
she
middle of
was-
the night. Why are you nervous?
I think she was. She drank, but I don't think she, with my experience, I don't think she was past the legal limit.
Right. Did you run her through Unit 800?
I didn't.
You didn't. So, did you run her on your MDT?
No, I didn't. All my stuff as far as that, because I didn't call it in and say it was a traffic stop. My computer was off and everything as well.
Did you shut it off?
I just shut it
after
off.
work?
Yeah, on the way on 50th, I turned it off right before the traffic stop, basically.
Okay.
Detective Davis now has Holtzclaw describe his version of precisely how the traffic stop transpired, searching for discrepancies, similarities, and significant omissions between the series of events that Liggins has described. Besides the expected omission of the assault, Holtzclaw's detailing of the encounter will largely mirror Liggins's. He pulled her over on the corner of 50th and Lincoln, told her he pulled her over for swerving, asked if she had been drinking, put her in the back of his vehicle and searched her car. He denies that she exposed her breasts, either voluntarily or by request, and that he searched her with her hands on the back of his vehicle. But he states that he did perform a limited frisk over her clothes on the back of her waist area, and asked her to lift her shirt a little above her waist.
Okay. Then, when you went back to her, what happened?
And when I went back to her, I was like, okay, I didn't smell any alcohol on your car and your juice thing. And I'm like, what's the deal? Are you really drunk or not? And she's like, no, I'm just trying to go back home. And at that time, I was like, okay, but I'll go ahead and follow you. I said, I'm not going to take you to jail. I'm tired. I'm not going to take you to jail. I'll go and follow you. And let's go back to 44. And you head westbound on 44. So that's what we did.
Did you follow her?
Actually, when I went behind her and we got in the car, She took forever, and I started getting annoyed, so I just U-turned it, and I went ahead, and I saw her in the back view of my rearview mirror. And she was following a 44, but then I took off going northbound on Broadway Extension, while she took 44 to go west.
So you were able to see her do that?
Yes.
And go. And then did you lose her when you got on Broadway?
When I went to northbound on Broadway, and she went 44 west.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like this is the lady, I mean, this is the deal where she's the complaining party. Okay. And she's making some sexual allegations, obviously, because sex crimes is working it.
Right. What did she say?
Well, was there anything, an accidental touch, anything?
If she thought it, when I passed searched her, but it was nothing as far as I felt like I would do anything as far as sexual or anything like that.
She's saying that you made her lift up her shirt, and when she lifted up her shirt, she exposed her breasts.
No.
She said she said she was doing this. When you said, is there anything inside your bra? And she was, well, no, I don't have anything like that. Did she do that?
Yeah, she did, but I didn't look or anything like that.
Right.
And then she was like, do you want me to show you? I was like, no.
She said when she said, do you want me to show you? You said, yeah, and she went,
No, I didn't.
What about pants?
Nothing in her pants as far as I could see. She was wearing tight jeans. So
She said she pulled them down.
I didn't see it.
Why do you think she's making this up?
I don't know.
Did you write her a ticket?
I didn't. I let her go, and I said I want to arrest you for your no STL.
Trying to figure out why she'd say that. I mean, I could see her saying it if you wrote her a ticket because she's pissed off.
Right.
A very valid point, made even more so when considering that Liggins has no criminal history, aside from a 30-year-old drug bust that she was never charged for, nor does she have any record of making complaints against police officers. Even if you were to grant Liggins is the type of person who would make a false and malicious complaint of this nature, it should at bare minimum be assumed that she would need some motive to do so. But in this instance, she doesn't even have something as minor as a ticket to try and get out of. In addition to that, Holtzclaw characterizes his demeanor toward her as patient and reassuring, making it very difficult to imagine what could have inspired her to take out such a vicious vendetta against him.
Think of anything yet?
Well, I think that was pretty good. Wasn't that pretty easy? Hey, we got to do this. Okay, if you don't mind. I got to take your buckles.
Okay.
We're doing that in the...
That's fine.
Holtzclaw now consents to investigators taking buccal swabs from him. Again, advocates will point to his willingness to cooperate and provide a DNA sample as a sign of his innocence. And again, you shouldn't put too much stock in that. It's not uncommon for a guilty person to readily supply damning evidence in the belief that the suspicion that will result from them refusing to do so will be more detrimental to their prospects than the damning evidence itself. It's completely illogical, but people make strange decisions when they're scared.
Did your penis go in her mouth?
No, it did not.
Okay. Because DNA will clear it up. And here's the deal, too. We can fall on the sword
Okay.
and say I screwed up or something. But if we say we didn't do it, and then the DNA comes back and says he did it, then we have a huge problem.
Right.
We're here to give you the chance to fall on the sword, so we don't want a huge problem. We don't want a huge problem for you.
Right.
Let's switch up for a second. You had another girl, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You probably not necessarily going to remember the name, but her name is Terry Morris, okay? Black female. Supposedly you promised her a ride to the city rescue mission. This ring a bell?
No.
You did a traffic stop with her. She thought you ran her for warrants. Was it clicking? Drove her around.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The name doesn't. I don't recall a name like that.
But she's claiming the same thing. The exact same thing. And here again, for whatever reason, things are pointing at you again.
Right.
Now this was before even this incident this morning. Traffic stop, not logged in, all that stuff.
This morning.
No, this has been a little bit ago.
Okay.
This was here just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Okay. Anything? Do you remember stopping?
I don't recall a name of Terry Moore.
Well, I wouldn't remember a name.
How about black female downtown, city rescue mission? That's what I was trying to jog your memory.
I haven't been to a city rescue mission.
I didn't say you made it there.
Have you promised anybody a ride to the city rescue?
I haven't asked anyone asked me to city rescue mission.
No, she didn't have to ask you. Did you offer to take anybody to the city rescue mission?
No, I don't offer anyone because I don't like going there. To be honest with you, I
don't like dealing with what?
I don't like going over to the city rescue mission or anything like that.
Okay. How about any stops of a person just walking, even just downtown? Anywhere downtown?
No. I don't, in Spring Lake, I don't go downtown.
Do you run everybody that you come in contact with?
Majority of the time.
But you didn't run old girl this morning.
The 50th
in Lincoln.
No, I didn't. I didn't run her.
The other girl that he's talking about is kind of making the same allegations, and that's weird.
Yeah, that's
doesn't look good.
I mean that's
Damn, dude, how does that happen? Crazy. That all of a sudden dude, I don't know if the cops are being nice here because they're like, if the cops are being nice here because he's a cop, or if they're trying to lure him in. Because, like, the way that she talked about this before, she's like, we don't want to have problems. Like, just tell us everything so we can deal with it. I was like, I can't tell if that's the fucking police union. It's the police union method where, you know, you need to know all the details so you can deal with it. But I guess he's in the interrogation room, so it's not, right? It can't be. But it literally does feel kind of weird.
Yeah, it does look good. So, no, I don't.
Doesn't look good.
No one with the city rescue mission. Never been asked. Never been offered anyone to go there.
Are you circumcised?
I'm circumcised.
Just asking. Do you have pubic hair?
Yes.
Well, I mean, some people manscape, as you call it.
Right.
Do you groom?
I groom.
Okay.
Yes.
So do I.
You got any identifying marks around your penis? Or?
I don't.
I just don't know what to think. Would you take a polygraph?
Yeah, if you want me to take a polygraph.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a solution. Do you know how slow DNA is?
I don't. I do not.
Slow. You be willing to take a polygraph on it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm calling. Get that set up.
There's a slightly crestfallen tone in Davis's voice as she mentions getting a polygraph set up after Holtzclaw expresses his willingness to undergo the test. This is because she knows no polygraph technician is on site at this moment, and barring the unlikely outcome of an outright confession, Holtzclaw will not be in their custody immediately after this interrogation has concluded. One of the first things he's almost certain to do at that point is secure an attorney, who will, if they're remotely competent, not allow their client to subject themselves to a polygraph. And that's precisely what happened. The very next day, Davis will call Holtzclaw to let him know she has arranged a polygraph that same afternoon. Holtzclaw will then refer her to his new attorney, who will promptly put a stop to those plans.
When was the last shower you had?
Took a shower before work.
When you went home, was anybody home?
My girlfriend was home.
Do you live with her?
Huh? No, she doesn't. She just stayed.
Did you get laid?
Messed around, yeah.
What's messed around? Sex?
I guess.
We were all adults.
We almost had sex, and she was tired.
What'd you do?
So my penis went around her vagina, and then maybe went a little bit in, and then she pushed me off and said, "No, we don't want to. I'm tired." I was like, "Okay."
Why'd you log off?
I always log off.
Aren't you supposed to stay logged on until you get home?
I always log off.
Do you keep your police radio on when you go? home?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
I
listening.
think I had my radio on. Yes.
Do sometimes you turn them off?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes.
That's not good officer safety. What if you drive by an armed robbery?
That's true too. Yeah.
I mean, or what if you drive by an officer that needs backup and you're right there and you didn't hear it?
That's right.
I'll give you my mommy lecture. So you always log off when you're done?
Majority of the time, yes.
Okay. When you bring her to the passenger side of the car, here's her car. I'm not a good artist either. And here's your car. Okay. So you bring her over here.
The back right.
Okay.
Passenger side.
Is this where you're having your conversation the whole time?
The whole time when I step out of the car, I'll always talk to him when you had anything on you. So as we're walking here, I'm like, okay, anything on you? Okay. Be careful. I just quick pat you down. Where just go ahead. Quick pat her down. No, I have weapons. I felt or anything like that. I'm like, lift up your shirt. About right there. Nothing. Okay. Keep walking. Still checking her out, making sure everything's good. And I'm anything your shoes. No. Try to take off her shoes. I'm like, are you good? So get inside the car, and that's when I proceeded to ask anything on board.
So she got inside the car.
She got inside the car.
Did you go get in the car and talk, or did you stand there with the door open and talk to her?
I think I did get inside the car for like a quick minute and just see what's the deal is, just talking to her and whatnot.
Did you see her belly?
Maybe some fat rolls or something, I don't know, but nothing
Right,
like
but I mean, could you see skin?
Yeah, I saw skin, yeah.
Well, she's older. Were tits hanging down, and you saw the bottom of her tits?
I don't know. I don't know. It's dark. I don't know.
You like older women?
I don't.
How old's your
girlfriend?
She's 25.
Okay.
What's the oldest lady you've slept with?
Maybe 29.
You ever slept with a black woman?
I have. In high school, I have.
Okay.
Do you have a race that you prefer?
I don't.
Although whether or not Holtzclaw has a penchant for the type of woman in his victim profile may seem of fundamental relevance, it's actually completely immaterial in a case like this. As it happens, Holtzclaw did not have any history of exhibiting sexual desire for older African American women. All of his girlfriends had been around his age and there was no pattern of racial preference. But while rape is a crime sometimes driven by the perpetrator's lust for someone who will not engage with them in consensual intercourse, that's far from the only motive. A rapist motivated by sadism is driven by a desire to humiliate their victims, or even punish them as a sort of proxy for a person or group they detest.
Did she ever ask you if you were going to shoot her?
She did. She was talking about a pistol all the time and talking about guns and whatnot. And I'm like, calm down. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot you or anything like that.
Did she think you were going to shoot her?
Maybe.
At this time, the interrogation has been going on for a little over an hour. Liggins told Davis she had expressed her fear that the officer was going to shoot her, and Davis has deliberately not prompted that detail from Holtzclaw up until this point. When she finally does, Holtzclaw immediately confirms that aspect of the encounter. It's a very strange detail for him to have withheld for this long, given the relatively mundane nature of others he's disclosed.
Okay, couple things.
We powwow and then we
All
keep
right.
you.
The gal was talking about that Terry Morris, the one, the other person. Okay, you're saying the same thing. Okay. Like say it was downtown. She was walking. Okay, so when I say stop, that's you see her walk, like a voluntary contact.
Right.
Okay. Here, think of a cross between this is one picture and this is her. She look familiar?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Now you stopped her for sure and ran here on a different day. It was May 8th.
This is not a bluff. Holtzclaw did come up as having run Morris through the OCPD's Varuna database on May 8th at around 9 p.m. Holtzclaw's GPS data also showed he was on patrol on the night of May 21st and that he was located downtown during a portion of that shift. This is the night that Morris claims the assault occurred. In the account she gave to the officers responding to Christopher Shelton's 911 call, Morris details an officer instructing her to unzip her pants and perform oral sex on him, threatening her with jail for outstanding warrants if she did not comply. She stated the officer pulled his erect penis out through his zipper hole and put it in her mouth for a short time before dropping her off at a nearby alley. The MO is remarkably similar to the Liggins accusation. Morris described the officer as white but with darker skin, a muscular build, and clean-shaven, though she did place his age at around 40.
She says that he stopped her later on, like I say, later on in the month. There's more kind of a downtown area. Does that ring a bell at all?
I don't recall any of those pictures. I don't recall any of that. I don't ever go downtown besides if I go to the gas station or county or.
Zip on back to this other deal. You're saying about
Absolutely fucking ridiculous. That all of these people would like somehow come up with the same shit. And not only that, but also more importantly, this is literally the most fucking jacked cop in all of Oklahoma. They're 100% going to fucking know who he is. He is literally like, he is, like, you can spot this motherfucker from a lineup from a mile away, dude. Like, he looks very different from other cops. He does stick out like a sore thumb, literally. Thank you, chatter. That was a good joke.
15-minute traffic stop.
Yeah, I did hear the
How
question.
long do you usually take on traffic stop, just on average?
Maybe 20 minutes.
Now,
That's a long
Maybe.
time.
Now,
Maybe.
20 minutes, and I'll give it to you. Just even doing the gang stuff and all that.
Mhm.
Okay. 20 minutes. Now, that's going to be some 800 time, right?
800, searching the car in detail, all that.
Okay, so doing all of that, all the running, waiting in line, and even on a search. Now, the question I have is we got a lapse of time here, so I'm kind of get a better handle on where the time went. You're talking about 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
no 800, no running on the computer, you shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was just a quick little search of the car.
It was.
Where's the rest of that time?
Just talking to her.
About what?
Just see
I mean,
where you
she's-
going. Trying to actually just trying to get her to confess. Are you drunk or not? Like, are you been drinking? Because I could smell it when I was in the
Yeah.
car, but I can't really get it.
Well, what if she said, yes, I'm drunk?
I probably would have took her down.
Did you do any
I didn't
tests?
do any. I didn't do any sobriety tests. Just from inside the car, smelling it, and that's about it.
even
Emotional,
that-
maybe.
But even
So,
that'd be just within a minute or two. I mean, I used to be DRE, so that I know how long those questions will
Right.
last. So then you switch on over. But nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay. Who all was home when you got home?
My girlfriend, Carrie Hunt.
You live with anybody else?
No, no,
Is she a policeman?
no, she's not.
Carrie Hunt?
Carrie Hunt.
What's her number?
Can you go through my phone?
Yeah.
As much as I don't want to get her involved.
We're not going to tell her what's going on, but we are
You
going to.
tell her whatever you want to.
Yeah, we're not going to.
Her number is going to be 918.
You created some more work. We were fixing to go. I just talked to Carrie.
Okay.
She said she was asleep when you got home and you did not try to have sex and you did not have sex.
They try to have sex.
She said you didn't. And I asked her, could you have been asleep? And you had kind of, no. And she said no. You did not try to have sex.
As much as I don't want to involve her, I tried to have sex with her and she was asleep. Carrie goes to sleep pretty early, about 9, 10 at the late. at
Okay,
the
but
latest.
she would know if you tried. I'm a woman.
I know.
And my husband comes home in the middle of the night and I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been asleep. You said you twirled around her vagina
I did.
and you put it in a little bit and then she said, I'm tired. No.
I did.
She would remember that to tell me.
Shoot. Maybe.
She said you did not try to have sex.
And it's more personal because it's Carrie, but I did try to have sex with Carrie. I did.
I don't know what to say. I mean, because it just looks like I just caught you in a lie. And now I don't know what to believe. I don't know, you're a dude. Does your wife get pissed off if you try to wake her up in the middle of the
She
night?
had white thong on and a t-shirt. And
Okay, you talk to him. I'm going to go call her again.
Okay.
Because right now, I don't believe it.
Hey, the pants.
You want me to bring him in?
Yeah.
In a plastic bag?
Yeah.
I mean, a brown paper sack. Okay, don't start yet.
and that's probably her message or whatever. I don't know.
She's like, what? All right, man. pants in his bag and just put the. I don't think you're gonna need to, unless you want to keep the.
Okay. I don't fucking understand. Like, maybe chat can elaborate. But what if he is lying about the like, what's the significance of him having sex with his girlfriend versus not? Was there semen on his pants? Also, I like that his cover up for sexual assault on a suspect or on someone who he like was stopping was, oh no, I was sexually assaulting almost my girlfriend. Like I attempted to, like that's wild, but you know, we're beyond that. You know what I mean? We're not going to talk about that, but that's a really interesting way to, you know, get out of a sexual assault charges by just admitting to other sexual assault attempts. He's just like, I can't be controlled. I am unstoppable. Good alibi. Very cool alibi to do that. Anyway, let's keep going.
Shirt on. I don't know. I don't know if this shirt's gonna be big enough for you. Here, there you go, boy. I was gonna get a tie back, so I don't know where these came from.
Holtzclaw removes his uniform and hands it in as evidence, marking the last time that he will ever sport the attire of an Oklahoma City police officer. He's immediately placed on administrative leave as the Sex Crimes Unit gears up for what will prove to be an intense investigation and an absolutely explosive case for the city. The raw 2-hour footage of Daniel Holtzclaw's interrogation has been a source of fascination for many within the true crime community and some outside of it for a myriad of reasons, and those familiar with it may have noticed that we've forded through it to an arguably excessive degree, skipping some very notable portions entirely. That's because we'll be returning to it later. Detectives Davis and Gregory found the similarities between the encounters that Terry Morris and Janie Liggins described, totally independent of one another, to be striking, even more so when taking into account they occurred within weeks of each other. And when on July 22nd, DNA from an unknown female was identified on the inside fly area of the pants Holtzclaw handed in, they concluded that this already bleak picture was likely far worse still. They believed this was a serial offender. Terry Morris had stated that the officer who assaulted her had used the threat of jail to coerce her into the sex acts, specifically citing outstanding warrants. And so from there, they began combing through a list of individuals Holtzclaw had run searches on, making particular note of those who had a similar profile to Morris, and began making contact with the ones that raised red flags. In the months that followed, multiple women began confirming that they were sexually assaulted by the police officer believed to be Daniel Holtzclaw. There was a very clear pattern: poor African-American women with a history of drug abuse and/or prostitution. Including Morris and Liggins, 13 would wind up going to trial. Here are the accounts of the 11 not yet mentioned. 39-year-old Sherry Ellis stated that approximately 3 months before she was contacted by police, an officer had stopped her while she was walking along Highland. He had her put her hands out to the side while he conducted a pat search from behind. During that, he touched her breasts and ran his hand between her legs, touching both her buttocks and her vagina while he did this. He then put her in the back seat of his car. He called dispatch and was told she had outstanding warrants. He then asked her what she thought they needed to do about this. From there, the officer stood over her while she was in the back seat, pulled his penis out and put it in her face, then in her mouth for a short time. He then drove her to a nearby old abandoned school, parked behind the building, made her get out of the car and pull her pants down. Then he made her bend over and raped her, after which he let her go. 53-year-old Florine Mathis was interviewed in prison as she was serving a sentence for an assault and battery charge at the time she came on the investigators' radar. Mathis stated an officer had stopped her near a park in the early evening. She could not place the exact date as she was under the influence at the time. She sat on the curb at the passenger side of the officer's patrol car as he ran a check on her. The officer told her she was all clear and then started questioning her as to whether she knew any working girls in the area, and also implied that she was a prostitute, which she denied. The officer then had her get up from the curb and began fondling her breasts over her clothes, but stopped when a car drove by or someone came out of a nearby house, and that was the end of the encounter. Mathis described the officer as being part Hispanic, part white, having dark brown to black hair and very muscular, though she did place his height at 5.
Part of the reason why he got is because he went after yet another black woman, thinking that this was going to be another, like, easy to like quiet victim, because, like, it's obvious that he's going after vulnerable people, using the threat of the law to fucking, you know, using the threat of the law to subject them to whatever the fuck he wants them to do, raping them, and then not even fearing the consequences. But in this instance, like, the first person that we actually saw that immediately reported him did not have that same background.
5:10. 41-year-old Tabitha Barnes claimed around the midnight hour.
Is this an assumption or a fact? My assumption is that, looking at all of the other victims and their backgrounds, that where either it's like people who have drug problems or people who are potential like prostitutes, things like that, he saw them as like easy prey because the system does not care about these people, unfortunately. But it feels like the last person, or rather the first person that we saw, didn't have that background at all. It was she had like a drug charge from many years ago, but it was nothing, and immediately went to the authorities. Because remember, a lot of these people are fucking terrified of cops for obviously good reasons. Do you understand? Especially if you're a black sex worker in fucking Oklahoma with a history of drug problems, like, the police are never going to be on your side. Like, they're never going to be on your side.
On 5th, she was sitting in the passenger seat
some of the most
her car
marginalized
with her
people on
friend
the
Angela
planet.
Cooper in the driver's seat and her
In
two
America,
children in the
especially.
back. They were parked facing a stop sign near her house, warming up the car when a police vehicle pulled into Barnes' driveway. Another police officer then pulled up behind them. That officer had Barnes step out of the car that she was in and put her in the back seat of his car. He then told the other officer that he would take care of Barnes, and then that officer then let Cooper and Barnes' two young children go inside their house before leaving. Now the officer that had put Barnes in the back seat of his car was the only one on the scene. The officer then ran her name on his computer and radio, confirming she had small ticket warrants outstanding. He then stepped back to the passenger seat where Barnes was seated and asked if she had drugs on her. She replied she did not. The officer then demanded she lift her shirt and bra up to demonstrate, to the point where her breasts were exposed, and she reluctantly complied. The officer then lifted up Barnes' bare breasts with his hands, held them for a while, then dropped them and indicated he was satisfied she did not have any drugs. He then asked her how much time she had to pay for her tickets, and said he could help her if she played by his rules, which she took as implying he could get rid of her tickets in exchange for sexual favors. Then there was another incident with Tabitha Barnes, placed around March 25th. She arrived at her home around 9:30 p.m. with her two children in the back of her car to find a police vehicle parked across the street from her house. There was also an unidentified black male lying in the front of her yard. She then noticed the same officer from the incident earlier that month was on the scene. The officer kicked the man on the ground and told him to get up and move, which he did. The officer asked no questions of him. Like last time, the officer then had Barnes sit in the back of his car, and he asked her if she had taken care of her tickets. She told him that she hadn't and started challenging him, asking him why he was always alone when they encountered each other, to which he responded that he was doing her a favor. Barnes now complained that the officer was scaring her children who were standing nearby at this point. The officer then ordered the children to go inside, which they did. Like last time, the officer said he needed confirmation she did not have any drugs. Based on the last incident, Barnes knew what the officer wanted from her, and so, not wanting to go to jail, she exposed her breasts as she knew that's all that would satisfy him. The officer then asked about her pants. She objected that her leggings were too tight to conceal drugs, but the officer was not satisfied, and so again not wanting to go to jail, Barnes reluctantly moved her pants, exposing her vagina as she was not wearing underwear at the time. The officer then told her he knew she didn't have any drugs inside the house, as he had already searched it while she was away, and he inquired about a man he found sleeping inside. Barnes then got out of the car, and the officer told her he wanted to make sure his $20 was still there. Not knowing what he meant, she turned around to see a $20 note sitting on the back seat. She asked what it was for, and he told her he had his reasons. Barnes was then let go. When she got in the house, she asked her boyfriend about the incident, and he confirmed that he had woken up to the officer shining a flashlight in his face, and that the officer had told him he had run him for warrants. And then there was a third incident the very next day. At around 4:30 p.m, Tabitha Barnes heard a knock at the door, went to open it, and the same officer was there. He asked if he could come in, to which Barnes replied no. The officer told her he needed to search her house for drugs, and she objected that he had just done that yesterday. He mumbled something and then said, "You still haven't paid for those fucking tickets," told her he'd be back, and then left. Not long after this incident, Barnes moved into her mother's house for 3 months. Before that, she would notice the officer drive by her house every day. She described him as being about 6'1" to 6'2", very built, and about 230 pounds. She thought he might have been Indian, noting his skin was not pale. He had spiked brown hair, and she placed his age at 34 or younger. 52-year-old Carla Johnson said she had been stopped twice by an officer who assaulted her. She placed the first event about 4.5 months before the time she was interviewed on the 14th of August. She said that stop was around midnight, and the officer pulled up behind her while she was on foot between Northeast 14th and Northeast 15th. He asked her if she was buying dope, which she denied. He had her empty her pockets and put her purse on the trunk of his car. He also had her remove her shoes, socks and jacket and asked her if she was wearing a bra. She said she wasn't and shook her shirt to demonstrate. The officer then put Johnson in the back of his car and searched her purse and jacket. He then got into the car and began asking her a series of questions, including whether or not she had drugs, was involved with sex work, and whether or not she had anything in her pants. Johnson said the officer asked her if she had anything in her pants 7 to 8 times. She was adamant she did not, and told him he could call a female officer to search her, which he never did. He called in a check on her over his radio, and after she came back clear, he let her go. However, after she got out from the back seat, she noticed a $20 bill lying on it. Thinking it was hers, she picked it up and put it in her pocket. As she was putting her thing...
Bro, he's literally developing a signature move, like a serial rapist. It's like a calling card. What the fuck? What was he, like, trying to get caught?
Back in her purse in the trunk of the officer's car. He asked her to give his $20 back. Realizing she had all the money she had before the stop in her back pocket, she returned the officer's $20 bill without hesitation. He then told her, "I had that money back there for a reason."
By the way, the signature move calling card thing is something that serial killers do. What? Serial killers also drink water. That doesn't mean he's a killer too. Wait, what? Wait, are you a truther? Are you a Daniel Holtzclaw truther? I'm very interested to see the turn on this, because like right now everything fucking shows, everything says guilty as a motherfucker. Like everything says guilty as a motherfucker. So I am very curious to see what will happen here if there is like a lot of contradicting information.
This marks the end of their first encounter with no sexual assault occurring. Then about 1.5 months later, at roughly 2 in the morning, when she was on foot at Northeast 16th on Jordan, the same officer rounded the corner and almost hit her. He got out of his car and asked her where she was coming from. She said she was on her way home from her cousin's house. He asked if she had any drugs or knives on her, and she replied that she did not, pulling out her pockets. Like last time, the officer put her in the back of his car and then he got into the front seat. He asked if he had stopped her before and taken her to jail, and she said that he had stopped her a month and a half ago but had let her go. The officer said that he can have a female officer come and search her if he believed she had drugs. She had condoms in her pocket, and the officer asked if she was out looking for dates tonight, and she said she wasn't. Like last time, he checks her for warrants on his radio and she comes back clean. He then let her out of the car and asked her if she had anything in her pants. She promised she didn't, and the officer said, "Let me check." Johnson turned around, expecting a pat check, when the officer reached around from behind her,
Okay,
grabbed
bro, I get it.
her breasts and began fondling them. He then put his hand down her pants, under her panties, and began fondling her vagina. She begged him to stop, and after a few moments, he let her go. 44-year-old Carla Rains said that sometime in the last year she was stopped by an officer as she was walking alone on Northeast 16th near Fonts Hill Avenue at about 10 p.m. He wanted to know where she was going and where she had been. He asked if she had anything on her and she replied no, after which he pat-searched her. After that, he said that he needed to check her and motioned for her to pull up her shirt, telling her he needed to make sure. She stated she felt she needed to lift her shirt and bra up to expose her breasts, which she did before.
To the chatter who asked, why do reasonably attractive men do this? This has nothing to do with like sexual gratification and everything to do with power. It's not about like whether he could get laid or not. And oh yeah, that's why he's like having to do this to these sorts of women. It is sadistic and it's completely about power. Like he wants to overpower and hurt these women. That's where that comes from. That's where that interest comes from. He wants to disregard them, treat them like trash.
Before covering them again. He then ran her name for warrants and let her go. She described the officer as 6 feet tall, white but with a tan, 210 pounds, and built, though she did place his age in the late 30s. 37-year-old Rosetta Great told detectives during a jailhouse interview that an officer had pulled up to her as she was walking along Jordan, having left a spot where she had been smoking crack. He got out of...
Look, every single victim so far consistently either has like a pattern of like drug abuse or prostitution. They have like outstanding warrants. They're all very vulnerable. What they are not is in the same age range. So it's like clear to me that he does not give a fuck about the way that they look or anything like that. Like he doesn't have a type beyond like obviously who he can get away with like abusing this way and assaulting this way. What about race? And they're all black women, which of course lay at the intersection. Black sex workers who also have drug addictions literally lay firmly at the intersection of marginalization. So their credibility is they don't have any credibility in the eyes of the law, unfortunately. So that's what it is.
out of the car and asked her what she was doing there, and she admitted that she was getting high. She said that she had been trying to walk home for a while, but every time she caught a date, she would wind up back at the same spot. At this point, the officer offered her a ride home and she accepted. They then set off toward her home after the officer searched her purse and made her break a crack pipe she had on her. When they arrived at her house, the officer followed Great to her door and then into the house and upstairs to her bedroom. She didn't question the situation because she didn't want to get in trouble. He told her to have a seat at the front of her bed and then he unzipped his pants, telling her this was better than county. He then had her perform oral sex on him. After that, he told her to lay back on the bed, which she did, and then he raped her. After he finished, he went back downstairs and left. 29-year-old Kayla Lyles said she was walking along Northeast 16th one night on a date she couldn't place exactly when an officer pulled up and asked her what she was doing. She said she was walking to a friend's house. He ran her on his computer and she came back clear. He then asked if she wanted a ride. Lyles declined, but the officer persisted and said that he needed to be sure where she was going. Eventually, she agreed to being taken halfway there, telling him she did not want to be seen in a police car in that neighborhood. Once in the car, the officer drove her to a nearby vacant school building. He then got out of the car, opened Lyle's door, and told her to get out. She turned around so that her feet were on the ground, but her body was still in the car, and the officer started grabbing his penis and said, "I bet that pussy is wet," to which she did not respond. The officer pulled his pants halfway down, exposing his erect penis. He put it in and out of her mouth for brief periods of time, and Lyles recalled he seemed to be in a hurry. She also recalled at some point during the incident, he touched her breasts and made her pull her shirt out to expose them. The officer told her to pull her pants down so he could see she didn't have anything stuffed in there. She pulled her pants halfway down, at which point he had her bend over in the back seat of the car. He then raped her for approximately 5 to 10 minutes, after which he let her go and told her he'd like to see her again tomorrow night. 22-year-old Shadarian Hill came forward after recognizing Holtzclaw on the news as the officer who had raped her on the 20th of December 2013. Hill had been arrested by Holtzclaw for PCP possession and taken her to Southwest Medical Center to be treated for a potential overdose. While she was in the hospital room, Holtzclaw stayed with her alone for several hours. He told her that he could help make her charges go away if she worked with him.
Bro, it doesn't make it better that there's also the same fucking background music, you know what I mean? Like the repetition of the cases and the details within the cases, and also the same fucking song on a loop is like making me lose my mind.
He went on to sexually assault her repeatedly over the course of those several hours.
Okay, I'm skipping the rest of this.
Her on the social media platform and exchanged dozens of text messages with her.
Oh wait, fuck, there's more information here.
In January of 2014, Holtzclaw would add Hill on Facebook, message her on the social media platform, and exchange dozens of text messages with her. On one occasion, he also stopped by her house in his personal car. He mentioned helping her get out of her charges and exposed himself to her, but no sexual contact occurred on that occasion. 48-year-old Sarita Bowen said that sometime in July of 2004.
Okay.
Ladera Gardner said that she was walking north on Blackwelder with her two friends, Face and Melody, when a police officer pulled up. The police officer put Face, the male in the group, in the back of his car, while she and Melody sat on the curb. He then spoke with all three of them separately. The officer ran Gardner on his
The reason why I'm not skipping this one is because it's the details might be different.
Computer and told her she had a warrant for trespassing. He said it was only a city charge and that he would let her go, but she needed to pay it quickly. A little while later, as Gardner is walking home, the same officer pulled up to her and told her that he did not believe she was who she said she was. He asked where she lived, and after she told him, he had her get in the back of his patrol car and drove her to her house. When they pulled up into her driveway, no one else was home, and Gardner told the officer she did not have the key to get in. The officer reiterated that he believed she was faking her identity. She walked to the porch and the officer followed her. He told her he needed to search her for drugs, and when he did, he put his hands underneath her shirt and bra and squeezed her breasts from behind. He then put his hand down her pants under her panties and put his finger in her vagina. He reminded her she had warrants and said that this was the only way she would avoid going to jail. He then got her to bend over and raped her while making several lewd comments. After he finished raping her, he told her he would see her later and left. Adira Gardner would later be found to be a match for the unknown female DNA that was found on the inside of Holtzclaw's.
How the fuck do you motherfuckers say that this isn't like, that this is a setup, dude?
55-year-old.
Okay, we're done. We're done. Come on. Oh, there we go. Fucking finally, holy shit.
They hadn't come forward earlier. They were scared of retaliation, and they didn't think they'd be believed. There was a widely held belief throughout the poor black neighborhoods of Oklahoma City that the police were the enemy and that the feeling was mutual. No matter what the extent of abuse may be, they would look after their own. And they certainly wouldn't let a member of their ranks serve time based on the word of drug addicts and prostitutes. After all, that's why Holtzclaw targeted them in the first place. However, with the encouragement, reassurances, and support of the investigators, the woman who came to be referred to as the Oklahoma 13 agreed to take the stand.
Waiting on this verdict in a highly charged trial with all kinds of racial undertones. This is out of Oklahoma City. The suspect's name, Daniel Holtzclaw. He is an ex-cop now, but he was an officer on the Oklahoma City police force when he was accused of the serial rapes here of 13 African-American women. The prosecution claims he picked them because he didn't think they'd speak up. Holtzclaw faces 36 counts in all, including sexual battery, forcible oral sodomy, and rape. So Nick Valencia back on this. Also joining us, criminal defense attorney Allison Trussell. So first, Nick, can you just bring us up to speed?
This has been a lengthy trial, Brooke. 5 weeks of testimony. A lot of that has to do with what you just reported. 13 women, all of them African American, all of them accusing Daniel Holtzclaw, that former Oklahoma City police officer, of raping them, of sexually assaulting them. Now, the state alleges that Holtzclaw singled out his victims, trying to pick out people in impoverished areas, people who may have had checkered pasts or run-ins with the police department. So if they ever
The person who asked, how is this a controversial case? I don't know. Apparently, Americans have a way to even make this much of an open and shut, horrifying case of like serial sexual assault into one that is a matter of like injustice. It seems literally the most straightforward thus far. We're only an hour in. There's another hour here. The more information that I get about this case, the more I'm interested to find out what the fucking twist is. Like, holy shit.
Did come forward to report this, that their credibility would be drawn in question. Now, to Holtzclaw's credibility, the defense did call his ex-girlfriend to the stand to speak to his character. She talked about how, according to local affiliate reporting, that he had read Bible scriptures to her. They were together for about a year and a half. That's about as much information as we know there. But the big bombshell in this case, Brooke, is skin cells. It rests on skin cells of a then 17-year-old who is accusing Holtzclaw of rape. Those skin cells found both inside and outside of the zipper of Holtzclaw.
We turn now to the stunning sentence tonight for a former police officer from Oklahoma City, convicted of assaulting several women, and the grandmother credited with cracking the case wide open. And tonight, how the judge ruled late today, that former cop now sentenced to 263 years behind bars. Here's ABC's Pierre Thomas.
Today, former officer Daniel Holtzclaw led to court in handcuffs and inside receiving a sentence to fit his horrific crimes. His eyes closed in court as the judge condemned him to 263 years in prison. The attacks had gone on for months, with many of the victims poor and black with criminal records afraid to come forward.
I was scared. I didn't know what to do.
That was until Holtzclaw abused this neighborhood grandmother.
He just picked the wrong lady to stop that night.
Yes.
The old adage, justice is blind, is one met with a considerable amount of skepticism from many in society, as time after time, those in positions of power are seen getting off light or suffering no consequences at all for wrongs committed against the marginalised. An element of the Holtzclaw case that served to intensify the public's rage, no small feat given the baseline hideousness of the charges, was that perceived power imbalance seemed to be acknowledged and indeed counted upon by the offender. Holtzclaw chose those who are in positions most of us will be fortunate enough to never endure: impoverished, chronically drug addicted, reliant on sex work just to make it through to the next day, the sorts of people most in need of help. But instead of being protected, they were abused in some of the most ghastly ways imaginable, at the hands of a man wearing a badge that endorsed his honor. And Holtzclaw chose the
Don't stop spitting in chat, dude. Keep spitting on him.
weakest in society on purpose, confident that they wouldn't come forward because they knew who they were and who he was. And what's worse still, the plan may have worked if it wasn't for that June 18th traffic stop. A quality that marks nearly all serial offenders is an escalation in appetite over time, a need to ramp things up in order to get their fix. That may be in the form of increasing the regularity of their crimes or the level of violence involved in them, and sometimes they'll do it by way of increasing the levels of risk. Up until Holtzclaw pulled over Janie Liggins, he had always made sure that his victims were well and truly on the outs, and just as planned, nothing had come back to him. On that night though, he never ran a record check on Liggins, and presumably thought he could get the measure of her and her circumstances by gut check alone. The risk he took on that proved to be the one mistake that caused everything to unravel, and unmasked a horrifying trail of abuse spanning many months, all the while remaining totally underground. It was a mistake that cost him 263 years, several lifetimes in prison. An impossible sentence, befitting acts of incomprehensible evil.
Wait, what? Ferguson? What the fuck?
But is there another way to look at all this?
Oh god, that's so loud! Oh, that scared the shit out of me, dude. That fucking scared the shit out of me. Why? Why would you do that, man?
Oh, fuck! Fuck you! Fuck the police! Oh my God.
Ferguson, in 2014.
2014, Michael Brown, an 18-year-old unarmed black man, was shot and killed by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. Time doesn't permit unpacking the circumstances around the incident any further than that, but Brown's killing was seen by many as tantamount to a modern lynching, and the outrage stemming from it led to intense civil unrest in the heart of Ferguson, Missouri, taking the form of everything from peaceful protests to all-out riots. And so the narrative goes that when reports began circulating in the news about an African-American grandmother being pulled over and raped by an officer in neighboring Oklahoma, and the investigators began to realize just how possible it was that the charges wouldn't stick, the powers that be mustered all of their resources to ensure the story of the rapist cop walking free did not become a reality. They would see to it that Daniel Holtzclaw was found guilty by a jury of his peers come hell or high water. The driver of this determination was not so much that they were certain he did it, but that they were certain that they could not afford for the streets of Oklahoma City to become another Ferguson. This version of events has sometimes been described as a conspiracy theory, and
yeah,